Welcome to another video by Photo Videographer. Prior to this year's Photokina, rumors emerged suggesting Sony would announce or even release the a7S III, a camera that is eagerly awaited by the community. This was clearly not the case. However, there was an interview with Sony's Yutaka Iwatsuki at the show where Cinema 5D asked whether Sony had gone back to the drawing board after seeing what the other camera manufacturers had announced or released in a month prior to the Photokina, and whether this was the reason for the long wait. Responding to the question, Mr. Iwatsuki basically said that they don't care what other camera manufacturers do, but focus solely on their customers, and that Sony wants to go beyond their customers' expectations. Well, this sounds great, although I don't know whether Sony really knows what our expectations are, especially after a bunch of new cameras have been released with really interesting and professional video features. With each new camera being launched, pushing the limits even more, also our expectations rise even more, which makes it increasingly difficult to meet or even exceed our expectations by the camera manufacturers. In fact, what would have excited us just 6 months ago, like for example 4K at 60p, has become the standard now as the recently released cameras have created a new benchmark. Nevertheless, Mr. Iwatsuki's response sparked even more rumors around the a7S III, where people are speculating about its specs and features. Some of them just read like a personal wish list. Some might be justified in light of recent technological advances. I don't want to fuel speculations around the a7S III even more. I leave that to other people. Instead, what I want to do with this video is to analyze, together with you guys, the technical specifications and features of the cameras that have been released during the course of this year, how they might affect development at Sony, and what Sony has to deliver for the a7S III to outcompete the others and create a new benchmark for mirrorless video-centric cameras. What you see here is a list of mirrorless cameras, including video-centric cameras like the Panasonic GH5S and the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, and hybrid cameras like the Sony a7 III, the Nikon C6, the Canon EOS R, and the Fujifilm X-T3. Why am I including hybrid cameras? While they typically can compete with video-centric cameras when it comes to video features, some of them offer pretty interesting value-added features that even a video-centric camera like the a7S III should have. Unlike my recent video where I compared the current top 5 hybrid cameras based on all their technical specifications and real-life experience, we will only focus on those features that are relevant to a video-centric camera with a form factor that is also called a run-and-gun video camera by some people. By the way, for those guys who are not yet familiar with what all those specs and features mean, I recommend to watch that video first, where I explain what they mean and what they are good for. I provide links at the end of this video and in the comment section. After covering all relevant features of the cameras listed here, I will summarize that for you and, based on our analysis, provide a list of features the a7S III must offer for it to outcompete the others and create a new benchmark. Let's look at the sensor first. Regarding format, type and design, the top cameras listed here are built around a full-frame back-illuminated CMOS sensor with dual-gain architecture. Since the entire Sony a7 series is built around full-frame sensors, it's probably fair to assume that this will be the case for the a7S III as well. And apart from that, it makes a lot of sense. In contrast to the smaller sensor formats, full-frame sensors offer better low-light performance and have no cropping. When it comes to the sensor's resolution, 8.3 megapixels would be sufficient for UHD 4K and 8.8 megapixels for DCI 4K. On the other side, Sony's own a7 III has a resolution of 24 megapixels, which equals 6K and results in very clean and crisp videos by oversampling from 6K to 4K without pixel binning, which means it provides 2.4 times the information needed for 4K, at least at 24p. That would suggest the higher the resolution, the better it is. And in fact, a recent article by Sony Rumors reports Sony is to announce a new 36 megapixel sensor, i.e. an 8K sensor with full pixel readout that could be the basis for the a7S III. I don't want to take part in these speculations, but I doubt it. Firstly, because there's a trade-off of what you can achieve in terms of improved video quality by oversampling from a higher resolution sensor to 4K, and what you make worse by introducing more noise with higher resolutions on the same sensor surface. Secondly, Sony's Mr. Iwatsuki mentioned at the Photokina that there's still much scope for innovation in 4K and that 8K will come beyond 2020. Consequently, a sensor with lower resolution than 36 megapixels is more likely, especially because Sony probably wants to remain the low-light king, a status they earned with the a7S II. That takes us to the maximum ISO, which is a good proxy for a camera's low-light performance. Regarding low-light performance, with the a7 III, Sony released a camera that is pretty much on par with the a7S II, but at double the resolution. Consequently, the a7S III has to offer an even higher maximum ISO and thereby better low-light performance. The dynamic range at lower ISOs probably doesn't have to top the a7 III, but if the dynamic range falls lower at increasing ISOs, that would be value added. The next point is image stabilization. A major difference between the Panasonic GH5 and GH5S is that the latter doesn't have IBIS or in-body image stabilization anymore. Panasonic just assumed the GH5S's users all use gimbals anyway. I think that's wrong and it's a shame, because its predecessor, the GH5, had very good IBIS. There are a lot of run-and-gun video shooters and vloggers that don't want to carry the extra weight of a gimbal but shoot handheld instead. Thus, the a7S III has to offer IBIS, and it should be improved over the a7 III. If this is not possible in an optical way, what video purists prefer, why not a mix of optical and electronic stabilization? I haven't been a GoPro fan with earlier models, but it's amazing to see what GoPro has accomplished in terms of electronic stabilization with its Hero 7 plaque. This just is some food for thought for Sony. The next topic is EVF, or electronic viewfinder, and LCD display. With the low resolution of the a7 III's EVF, Sony has done no favor to its users and themselves. This will always remain a point of criticism. Thus, the a7S III clearly has to offer a higher resolution EVF. The same applies to the LCD display. It has to have a higher resolution. For a camera with a price tag of probably more than $3,000, these 2 points should go without saying. This takes us to the functionality of the touch display. Many A3 users wish this to be not only limited to touch focus and moving around in a zoomed-in image, but for navigating the menu system as well. And finally, the last and most important point regarding the EVF and display section, the Sony a7S must offer a fully articulated display. Not having it has probably been the single biggest point of criticism of the entire A7 series. Many run-and-gun video shooters and most vloggers just don't want to carry around the extra weight of an external monitor, which is why they rather go for the GH5S or EOS R. Hence, equipping the a7S III with a fully articulated display, Sony would gain a lot of new customers. Next topic is autofocus. While the a7 III's coverage of the frame with CDEF and PDEF points is sufficient, and its autofocus performance in still image mode is impressive, in video mode it's rather slow and leaves you significantly less options to adjust autofocus to the situation as compared to still image mode. For example, the Fujifilm X-T3's autofocus is noticeably faster than the one of the a7 III, and the X-T3 even offers IAF in video mode, a feature that many filmmakers will highly appreciate. Consequently, the a7S III should offer a faster autofocus with more options, and as a pioneer in IAF, it should match the X-T3 and offer IAF in video mode as well. Finally, to conclude the autofocus section, the AF of the designated low light king should also work at low light in order to be aligned with its low light performance, which means the AF should be rated down to lower than -3 EV. Now it's going to get interesting. We are getting to the video spec section. Although the Panasonic GH5 had already offered that for some time, only 6 months ago, people got excited about cameras that can do 4K video at 60p. Today, even such little cameras like the GoPro Hero 7 Black and the newly released DJI Osmo Pocket offer 4K at 60p for less than $400. Of the cameras listed here, 3 offer DCI and UHD 4K at 60p, the Panasonic GH5S, the Fujifilm X-T3 and the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, though 2 of them with slight limitations. While the GH5S offers DCI and UHD 4K at 60p with internal recording, it does so only with 4:2:0 chroma subsampling and color depth of 8-bit with long GOP compression. With external recording, you get DCI UHD 4K even with 4:2:2 chroma subsampling and 10-bit, but again not with all intra compression. That you only get at 30p and lower. It's similar with the X-T3. While with internal recording, you get DCI and UHD 4K at 60p with 4:2:0 chroma subsampling, but color depth of 10-bit, you get DCI and UHD 4K at 60p with 4:2:2 chroma subsampling and color depth of 10-bit with external recording, but with long GOP compression. Here too, you only get all intra compression at 30p and lower. Furthermore, DCI and UHD 4K at 60p is recorded from 1.18 times crop region. Now, the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K is a really interesting camera. Even with internal recording, you get DCI and UHD 4K at 60p with 4:2:2 chroma subsampling and color depth of 10-bit when recorded with Apple ProRes 422, and you get a whopping 12-bit color depth when recorded with Cinema DNG RAW. These are really amazing video specs, not only numbers-wise, but because the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K records with professional codecs and compression and even allows for raw data readout of its sensor. This is one of the reasons why the quality of its footage is very good and shows a cinematic look and feel despite being a micro four thirds camera. The X-T3 and especially the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K are the new benchmark against which the a7S III will be measured. Hence, the a7S III has to offer DCI and UHD 4K with 4:2:2 chroma subsampling and 10-bit color depth with at least 60p frame rate and no limitations whatsoever in order to just match the X-T3, which means the a7S III has to offer these specs not only with external but with internal recording, especially as many run-and-gun shooters and most vloggers don't want to carry around an external recorder. However, it needs more than that if the a7S III wants to compete with or even outcompete the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Sony had positioned the predecessor, the a7S II, as a serious option for professional filmmakers, and at that time this claim was justified. With this legacy, the expectations are high for the a7S III, and while run-and-gun shooters and vloggers might be satisfied with H.264 and H.265 codecs and compression, serious filmmakers want to have codecs like Apple ProRes, AvidDNX HR, or even raw data like ProRes RAW or Cinema DNG RAW. Monitor and recorder manufacturer Atomos, for example, has approached Sony already some time ago to convince them to allow raw data readout directly from the sensors of the A7 series cameras. So far without success, as Sony allows this only for the FS5 and FS7 series. Sure, Sony doesn't want to cannibalize sales of these more expensive models, but I'm pretty sure that an a7S III that allows raw data readout would sell like hell and at a much higher quantity than the FS5 and FS7 series, so that a7S III sales would more than offset potential cannibalization of the FS5 and FS7 series. And let's face it, the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K, a camera that only costs around $1,300, offers the mentioned professional codecs and raw data readout. And included in the price is the studio version of DaVinci Resolve that costs some $300 on a standalone basis. Hence, the net price for the camera is only some $1,000. With a price tag that will probably be 3 times as high, the a7S III must offer these codecs and or raw data readout, at least for external recording, to just match the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K. Regarding flat and HDR profiles, there is no doubt the a7S III will come with S-Log 2 and 3 as well as Hybrid Log Gamma. And since even the a7 III offers Gamma Display Assist, which is a hybrid but not a video-centric camera, it's probably fair to assume that also the a7S III will offer this feature. However, this is not enough anymore, as the GH5S and the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K even offer LUT support, what the latter takes to the next level by allowing LUT upload to the camera not only for monitoring but also for recording. Consequently, the a7S III should offer this kind of LUT support to be able to compete with these cameras. Talking about LUT support, we should also talk about color science. Meanwhile, probably most people agree and appreciate that Sony has significantly improved color science with the release of the A9, the A7R III, as well as the A7 III. Skin tones and colors altogether are definitely better than in previous models of the A7 series. However, there are still many people claiming that the Canon colors are better, especially when it comes to skin tones. And they are probably right. On the other side, people who have already seen footage of Sony's Venice Cine Alta camera are absolutely excited. Sony has implemented the Venice color science in form of a new default color profile in the FS5 Mark II. While this is a baked-in look and cannot be used as a color setting with S-Log 2 or 3 or Cine Gamma, it softens skin tones, provides more natural highlight roll-off, and delivers more cinematic footage out of the camera. Adding the Venice color science to the a7S III would silence all Sony color science critics very quickly. Okay, next topic, connectivity. A micro HDMI connector is a nightmare because you will always be afraid of it slipping out during recording. While you can avoid this with a rig and an HDMI clamp, this means more weight you have to carry around. A full-size HDMI connector sits firmest in its socket, which is why this is the best option. The GH5S and the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K offer this. Hence, also the a7S III should be equipped with a full-size HDMI out. When it comes to audio, a microphone jack is good, but having an XLR or micro XLR connection in addition to the microphone jack is even better. Of the cameras reviewed here, only the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K offers this. Consequently, also the a7S III should offer it. Most of the listed cameras here offer a USB 3.1 Type-C connection. However, since the manufacturers don't provide that information, we don't know whether it's generation 1 or 2. Only with USB 3.1 generation 2, you get data transfer rates of up to 10 gigabits per second. If the a7S III should really offer more professional codecs or even raw data readout, generation 2 would make a lot of sense if you want to transfer the bigger files directly from the camera to your computer. Even better if Sony implemented a very interesting feature the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K already offers, which lets you connect any available SSD to the camera for direct recording from the camera to the SSD via USB. USB 3.1 generation 1 might slow down the data transfer between camera and SSD, thus USB 3.1 generation 2 would be very helpful for the described case. The other section comprises two features that are important to professional and enthusiast photographers and filmmakers. If you earn your money with photography or filmmaking, you just can't risk losing data due to corrupt memory cards. This is why storage redundancy is important. While the predecessor, the a7S II, has only one memory card slot, the latest models of the A7 series all have two. Hence, it's fair to assume that the a7S III will have two as well. However, the question is whether we also get UHS 2 support for both. SDXC UHS-1 cards offer write speeds of up to 95 megabytes per second, which translate into bit rates of 760 megabit per second. If Sony continued to record at low bit rates with the a7S III, UHS-1 support would be absolutely sufficient. However, if they really offered recording with a more professional codecs or allowed raw data readout, then UHS-2 support would be required, and this on both memory card slots for data redundancy. The other feature professionals want to see is weather sealing. While I didn't experience any issues with it, some people are of the opinion the weather sealing of the a7 III is not optimal. In fact, the battery cover lacks sealing at one point. That can be improved, and it should, for a camera like the a7S III, which will probably cost significantly more. Okay, that was a lot of information. Let me quickly summarize the conclusions from our analysis to see what Sony has to deliver with the a7S III to outcompete the others. More and more people are asking for full-frame cameras. Consequently, the a7S III needs to be built around a full-frame CMOS sensor. And while a full-frame CMOS sensor should be a given, as all A7 series cameras have one, the question is whether it will be a back-illuminated sensor for better low-light performance and higher dynamic range, or a stacked sensor for faster sensor readout, which might enable higher frame rates in video mode, or even a combination of both. And that the sensor will feature a dual gain design is also very likely. The sensor resolution should be high enough for improving video quality through oversampling, but low enough for holding noise in check. The a7 III already offers very good low light performance. The a7S III, with its probably higher price tag and with the legacy of its predecessor being the low light king, has to top the a7 III on low light performance. The IBIS of the a7 III is good, but not good enough, especially compared to the much older GH5, not GH5S, which doesn't have one, or compared to the GoPro Hero 7 Black. Sure, IBIS in the a7 III is by optical stabilization. The Hero 7 Black features electronic stabilization, which might negatively affect video quality. However, optional electronic stabilization on top of the optical stabilization would be a feature that many people would love who shoot handheld because they don't like carrying around gimbals. The low resolution of the a7 III's LCD display, and especially the low resolution of its EVF, has been a major point of criticism. Thus, the a7S III must feature high-resolution EVF and LCD display on par with current cameras like the Nikon C6 or Canon EOS R, or Sony models like the a7R III and A9. The limited functionality of the a7 III's touch display is the next major point of criticism of the a7 III, which is why the a7S III needs a fully functional one to silence the critics. The GH5S and the Canon EOS R have it, and many other cheaper cameras as well. The fact that the cameras of the A7 series don't have a fully articulated display has been a long-term criticism of these cameras. Since the A7 series cameras are all equipped with tilting LCD displays and Sony usually doesn't deviate from a certain design within a camera series, the likelihood that we will be getting a fully articulated display with the a7S III is probably not that high. However, equipping the a7S III with such a display would generate a lot of new customers for Sony. For example, the many bloggers who haven't even considered buying a Sony for this very reason. Better autofocus performance in still image mode than in video mode is probably acceptable for a hybrid camera like the a7 III. However, the a7S III will be a video-centric camera. Consequently, Sony should put a lot of emphasis in developing a faster and more reliable autofocus for the video mode that offers more options to adjust for different situations. The fact that the Fujifilm X-T3 offers eye autofocus even in video mode should wound Sony's pride as an eye-AF pioneer. Apart from that, it's incredibly useful. The a7 III has to match that. The autofocus of the GH5S is rated down to -5 EV and the one of the EOS R down to -6 EV. The latter value would arrive at -4 to -5 EV based on ISO 100 and an f2 lens. While low light performance and low light functionality of the autofocus are different things, the low light king should at least match these values to get both in line. The GH5S and the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K offer DCI and UHD 4K at 60p with 10-bit color depth and 4:2:2 chroma subsampling, the latter camera even when recorded internally. And even the X-T3, being a hybrid and not a video-centric camera, offers this with external recording. The a7S III must at least match this with no limitations regarding the degree of compression or whether it's internally or externally recorded. Many people just don't want the extra cost and weight of an external recorder. Professional codecs for better video quality and more fluent editing. Serious filmmakers and colorists would love it. And apart from that, the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K already offers ProRes. Hence, the a7S III should match it. While requiring fast editing systems and huge storage capacity, even better for video quality and color grading would be raw data readout. The Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K offers Cinema DNG RAW, but people wouldn't complain if it was ProRes RAW or the new Blackmagic RAW. It would just be great to have this option. LUT upload for monitoring as the GH5S allows it, or even for recording as the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K offers it, would significantly facilitate finding the right exposure and assessing the video when recording with a flat or HDR profile. Implementing the Venice color science for better skin tones, more natural highlight roll-off and more cinematic footage would silence all critics once and for all. A full-size HDMI out is a minimum requirement for a camera like the a7S III, full stop. There are good microphones for the 3.5mm microphone jack, but with XLR you are better equipped for professional audio. If we really got the more professional codecs or even raw data readout from Sony, USB 3.1 Generation 2 would make a lot of sense for faster data transfer. 2 memory card slots or a minimum requirement for data redundancy. Regarding UHS 2 support, it's similar as with USB 3.1. If Sony gives us the more professional codecs or raw data readout, both memory card slots have to support the faster UHS 2 cards. And finally, a feature that would make a lot of sense if Sony gave us the more professional codecs or raw data readout is the direct recording onto an SSD via the USB port of the camera. There is no doubt the a7S III equipped with all these features would sell like hell. But do I believe that Sony will give its a7S III all the features we have listed here and which we believe are necessary to outcompete the others based on our analysis of the already existing cameras? Not really. But Sony would not only do us a favor, they would also do themselves a favor if they added all these features to the a7S III. Just look at the price of the cameras we have reviewed here. With the GH5S and the X-T3 you already get a lot of value for your money, and the Blackmagic Design Pocket Cinema Camera 4K is a steal. Why should anybody spend some $2,000 more for the a7S III if it just matched the cameras we have reviewed here? Sure, you would get a full-frame sensor with the a7S III, but is this enough to justify this kind of a price premium? I don't think so. If Sony really equipped the a7S III with all these features, Sony's Yutaka Iwatsuki would really have convinced me that Sony want to go beyond their customers' expectations. Okay, that was it. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and please make sure you don't miss out on my next video by clicking on the subscribe button and notification bell. See you in my next video.